fun and as entertaining and as surprising as it can possibly be. Hopefully we'll continue to be successful at that.
What's your take, James, on sort of where Red is right now in terms of the character? You know, he's obviously used to being in control of the situation, but we've seen him get a little more vulnerable as the season went on, and obviously at the end, in tussling with Berlin, we saw some real cracks in sort of this controlling personality that he has.
You know, I think the answer to that is probably it has as much to do with his past as anything else, and I think the life that he's led for some time is very conducive to chaos and very conducive to crisis, and so I think he's able to shift gears and find his way swiftly, and so with a character like that, it's all the more interesting to put them up against as much adversity as possible, and to take a character who is perfectly happy to cross any threshold and put himself in any set of circumstances. I think the fun of that is to then say, okay, well, if that's the case, then we're going to put him in some very dire circumstances, and we're going to see how he responds, and that's a big part of, getting back to what we were talking about, that's a big part of the second season, is all of a sudden, how is he going to go hide in a hole somewhere, or is he in fact going to sort of redouble his efforts to put himself out there? And put himself and therefore the people in his sphere of influence, most importantly Elizabeth Keene, in front of the firing line as much as he is. And you could probably guess at the answer to that.
How much have the Johns, and by the way, every executive producer on the show is named John, right? So that's a weird requirement that you had, James, but it seems to work. But how much have the Johns told you, and how much do you want to know in terms of Reddington's backstory and what's happening next and in the future?
We've talked a lot about that right from the very beginning. We talked about it around the time of the pilot, and then when it looked like we were going to be lucky enough to move forward into series, those conversations have been happening fast and furiously. By the same token, without knowing what the inevitable lifespan of the series will be, one that has to be fluid to a certain degree, and there has to be a certain amount of flexibility because you don't know the amount of time that you're going to have to tell your story, and therefore how many misdirects there may be, or how circuitous your route is going to be to get to your end game. Is unclear without knowing, and going from first season into second season, if you have one more year to tell your story is certainly going to be told in a much simpler fashion than it will be if you're going to be doing it in 7 years, or 6 years, or whatever we're required at this point. I don't know how long we all signed for, but.
Well, I think we noticed that the number 162 has been mentioned on the blacklist, so if you are numbering every episode, that leads you up through at least 7 seasons. So
is that the highest number we have so far?
I think that is, right around 162, so 7 seasons, that's...
Right, well...
NBC executives in the audience are appreciated that I just said that.
As a caveat, I will say that Reddington is one thing he's terrible at is arithmetic.